and welcome everyone to another Women's Health Tech Wednesdays. My name is Nina Joshi, and I am very excited about our guest today. Today, we will be bringing on Lisa Crymes, who is an Innovation Fellow here at HITLAB. So excited to have you on, Lisa. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks, Nina. Happy to be here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, would love if you could just kind of kick things off. Of course, this is Women's Health Tech Wednesday, so we have to ask, what does women's health tech mean to you?
Well, it means a couple of things to me. I mean, I put it in a couple of different categories. I mean, of course, there's, growth in fintech and driving that to meet women's needs is certainly important. But I think it's also about supporting young and early career women and encouraging them to enter, STEM-related areas and healthcare, specifically around technology, right? I mean, that encouragement and support. And then I think it's probably one other area. It's also bringing a female perspective or a woman's voice into technology companies and boards and at the executive level and into the seat. Having a woman's voice at the executive table just brings a much needed perspective and balance that is super important. So I think it's all three of those.
That's incredible. I love that. Very, very robust answer. That's amazing. And I totally agree where it's not only, including women in the conversations, but also building for women and kind of having that also be a part of it. So I love that you were kind of thinking on both sides of the spectrum there. Would love if you could just tell us a little bit about just your journey, what kind of led you to the digital health space, and just, we would love to learn a little bit more about you and your background.
Well, it goes back, if you can believe this, about 35 years. So we've got a couple hours, right? No, I can do this quickly. Really, my interest in healthcare, I've had it for as long as I can remember. I mean, even as early as a teenager, some of my first job was as a nursing aide, working in a nursing home, like in the summers. So really, just early as I can remember in healthcare. I started college at a pretty young age. I had just turned 17, and my goal was to pursue a nursing career. And I wasn't really prepared for it. I mean, to be honest with you, I was young and wasn't prepared. So after a year, I decided to take a break from my undergraduate and pursue a medical assistant certification program. But what that did for me is it gave me the opportunity the next 8 years. This was a long time ago, but it gave me 8 years of working for an ambulatory surgical practice. It let me work in a very multi-physician internal medicine practice. It gave me some exposure to the business office, but I was primarily in the clinical side of that, which was exciting. I got to see the full environment of healthcare. Where it got really fun, though, is I was interested in the business office, right? I wanted to be closer to that. So I asked if I could move into the business office, and that's where it all started to click for me. I was in charge of our practice management system. I implemented electronic claims. I started producing reports that they had never seen before. I was asked to be on a committee to replace our practice management system and implement a new one. And then that's when it fully clicked for me. So I had, I literally said, that's it. I want to be in healthcare technology. So, by then I had gone back to school and I had finished up my undergraduate degree, and I was starting to look at my MBA. So moving over into healthcare technology, 25 years ago, that's how it happened. And then it's grown from there, right? I mean, it's, I started in the supporting healthcare technology, practice management, EHR. And then as I finished up my MBA, there was a role for a product manager. I'm like, what is this? And it seemed perfect to me because they were looking for someone who understood the healthcare market, understood what a user needed, understood technology and how to have conversations with technology. So with that, along with my MBA, is how I really launched into healthcare technology and in product management and I've never looked back.
That is incredible. I love that. I mean, what a robust career you've been able to really, I think, get exposure to so many different parts of like just the healthcare ecosystem. And I love that you kind of were able to like, you kind of went into some place, learned a lot, and then just kind of continued to always like course correct and keep learning and figuring it out. I think that's amazing to hear.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Kind of keeping a core, thought process and core beliefs around it, but being in different areas of healthcare to me is always, they in design thinking, they use the term a beginner's mind of going in freshly into whether it was the provider side that I knew so well, but now maybe the payer side or medical device or pharma and knowing the broader ecosystem, but having a fresh perspective on that particular market has always been a lot of fun.
I can imagine. That sounds incredible. And then for you too, I know you were kind of talking about how just all of your exposure working for all of these practices, and then you just, I would imagine, just kept seeing what was going on in the business side of the offices. And was it kind of like curiosity that drove you to it, or was there like something in specific that you were looking for that you thought kind of the business angle would be able to provide for you?
Yeah, it was during a time of healthcare shifting, and although I love the patient environment and the clinical environment in that space, even the practices that I worked for, there was always a question of what insurance do they have so we can understand what their reimbursement is going to be, or maybe I remember a time in an outpatient surgical environment where the doctor wanted to know what their insurance was before he made a decision on a particular, screw or a piece of equipment that he was going to use. So it just started to click for me of why the business side mattered and how much that was just as much a part of the experience of a patient coming in, scheduling that appointment, checking in, the entire experience was important. So that was probably what pushed me over there and had me interested. And then just the use of the technology, and when I saw data coming in and what that could do for the business, just continued to encourage me to go in that direction.
Right. That's so interesting. It's kind of like you're seeing the sausage get made, almost like all of the logistical components that come into just a single healthcare experience.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. And of course, speaking of technology, would love to kind of get your definition or your take of, what does digital transformation mean, and why is that important to have in healthcare?
Yeah, I think of digital transformation is how you're enabling or streamlining a process and doing that in a way that is leveraging technology. The name of the game in many ways is getting that data. So even, if I think back to those early days of implementing electronic claims, right? If you can, I know you can't even imagine a time when those didn't exist, but there was a time, and it was paper, and without that data and without a way to aggregate all that data, we couldn't do as much. So to me, digital transformation is about electronic health records, claims, payments, every touch point. And then ultimately what that drives is not just a better member or patient experience, but it's a personalized experience. I mean, that's the opportunity that it creates. And, we know that from just a customer experience kind of view in the market, right? Of, you want Amazon to know you, you want Nordstrom's to know you. And that is done through data. So that's why it's important in healthcare as well.
Absolutely. That is so interesting about, we interact with it. We see it so often in so many industries of our life that, I mean, for something as important as your health, like you want to feel like you are intimately known and that decisions are being made specific to you and personalized for you. So I think, that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
And of course, speaking to your human-centered design and some of the design thinking lens that I know that you have spent a lot of time really practicing, how does the digital transformation component not only tie into healthcare, but really the patient, the customer experience within the broader healthcare ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I think the tie-in with customer experience is, product management has always had a voice of the customer. I mean, the market is the voice of the customer. Specifically, the customers are part of that. But when you say customer experience, to me, it means kind of going deeper, right, and understanding the empathy, using empathy interviews, or using design thinking type tools to help understand the customer better. So keeping customer experience kind of a subset of product management, but using the tools and the techniques to get deeper into understanding those experiences. So, just as an example, instead of saying, "Hey, customer, what do you want? What would you like to see in a product?" You can say, "What kinds of problems are you trying to solve?" Or better yet, you let's kind of walk through that and walk through the experiences you want your patients to have, or what is it now? I think I've said before is that product management taught me to, once a product manager, always a product manager. And it's always taught me to think about the entire experience, right? I mean, just because you built something, it doesn't mean it's ready if you don't know how to sell it, market it, but also if you don't know how to create a contract, or you don't know how to implement your customers or support them or send them an invoice or any of those things. And I think that is what customer experience ultimately does, is that it allows you to think about end to end and what the experience is you want a member or a patient to have throughout that experience. So kind of two parts.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, so important. I really want to just get into the weeds of this and really pick your brain for those that are maybe not super familiar with, a lot of these types of tools and methodologies that can be used to really get at the core of the motivations and the behaviors of consumers, customers, patients. So I know you were kind of talking about patient journey. And so I know you do a lot of work with patient journey mapping. What for you is kind of like the benefit of a tool like this, for those that are maybe interested or are not as experienced with patient journey mapping? Why is it important? What can it teach you? And kind of how do you go about doing something like that?
Sure. Yeah, it is. I get really excited about journey mapping specifically, but because of, related a little bit to what I was just saying, but because it allows you to think through, the patient experience. We'll just focus on that for a second. Doesn't start when they, step into the physician practice, right? It starts when they have a problem, and maybe they start researching it on the, Googling their symptoms, or talking to their family, or trying to figure out where they're going to go. That's when the experience begins. So if you map out, if you really map out an end-to-end journey, that's what you're doing, is going, okay, what started the problem? Then what did they do? And then they reached out, maybe made a phone call or scheduled online. Then what happened? So you're thinking about all those pieces surrounding it. What happens when they're referred to lab? Or what happens when they go home and they don't understand their prescription? Or what if they need help from a caregiver or a family member? So there's all those different pieces that I think that is what is unique about journey mapping, and using tools to just say, okay, what steps do you take? And it's easy. It's just a technique to capture those individual steps. Then the next layer is the emotions behind it. It's like, where's the emotion? Where is it that, where does maybe friction happen? Where is it difficult? Where is it filled with, anxiety or emotion or some kind of stress for the patient going through that experience? You can start to pull that out by understanding those individual pieces. So I think it's a fascinating way to really get deep into, even designing and solving problems is once you've got to start by understanding what they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So many. Okay. A couple things. This is such a great way to explain it. And I love that you were kind of talking about, I think when we think of healthcare, it's almost like the one image that comes to mind is like patient doctor in a doctor's office, but that's just one part of the puzzle. There's so much that happens before they even interact with a physician or really anyone in the healthcare system. And there's so much that happens after. So I love that you really think about it that way and not just about when they're in the physical, building or facility where healthcare is happening, like a hospital or a clinic. So I really love that's kind of the focus of it. And then something else too that I liked was the use of emotion. For you, just kind of in the work that you've done, are there particular areas, and I'm sure there are many, but are there, one or two that you can think of where you are kind of seeing some of that friction that either maybe surprised you or were just kind of interesting to you as you were, as you've been doing all of these patient journey mappings?
Well, one that comes to mind because I was, there's the patient side, and I know I flip between patient and member is because we think of a consumer as a patient when they're in the, delivering care, but on the health plan side, we think of them as a member, and it's the same person. So, one of those is I think about like some of the population health type initiatives and drivers. So from a member health plan experience, they are, you know this well, this environment is, you're maybe pushing out or encouraging a member to seek preventative care or to be enrolled in a program that's going to get them added care. But they have an experience in a relationship with the providers, right? So, so maybe even getting a phone call or a postcard or some kind of outreach from their health plan where maybe there's not a relationship, you're going to go, well, does Dr. Smith know that about this? And so that is, that can take some, there's some friction that can be wrapped up in that if you don't know what to expect and you're not understanding the connection between the two. So, and I know health plans, and because I've been on both sides, and providers are doing such a better job at collaborating between the two and thinking about that end to end and what that means between the two. But that one is just one that kind of comes to mind.
100%. No, that's really interesting. And that does make a lot of sense about, really thinking behind, what's like the sentiment for these consumers and really like, how are they interpreting the information that you're sharing, I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. And I love, just kind of on this train too, since you are, the expert, you have so much wealth of experience for those that are maybe, health tech founders or kind of early on in the journey when it comes to, I've noticed a problem and now I want to build a solution. For you, just kind of where's a good place to start when it comes to really understanding not just, the patient in the eyes of interacting with a specific tool or technology, but really that end to end, how it exists in their life? Are there any good, beginner friendly things to kind of start to think about when it comes to the patient journey?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in, agile or lean, that concept of fail fast, because getting something out and in front of people as quickly as you can is a part of that, right? Is you can spend many years coming up with a great idea, but if you're not getting it in front of people, then you have the potential of missing the mark. But it goes even further, and it's exactly what you said. You can have a great product, you can have a great tool, just many great medical devices, right? You can have the best product, but if you don't understand how it's going to be used, not just the patient, but the practice. So this gets into a little bit of change control and adoption. And if you don't know how that is going to be implemented in the practice and how many more of those types of things are going on, or if it's going to disrupt the workflow of what they already have in place, or they're not going to get reimbursed for it. All these other factors come into play. So it's not just having a great product or a great solution. It's really understanding how are people going to use it, and how does it fit into that broader, what I call ecosystem of healthcare. How does it fit into that particular, into that situation or that environment?
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And something that I was kind of thinking of as you were really talking about, like just being iterative and kind of, being very lean is for organizations that either you've been a part of, that you've consulted with, there's a lot of amazing upfront work that's done about the journey mapping, really understanding it, building things for them. How do you ensure that you're continuously kind of getting feedback and kind of making adjustments as needed? Is that kind of something that is done like for you? Like, do you kind of go back out to your patients and interview them again? Do you do surveys? Like, what are some ways to kind of make sure that you're getting that continuous feedback?
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. That's an important part. It's not a one and done. It is, I often use sort of this flywheel thought process of listening and having ongoing listening post. So that could be, certainly it could be a survey, right? That's not the end all be all. I like reaching out and being proactive and capturing qualitative feedback and actually asking the questions that maybe are an add-on to a survey. I've used user group meetings, advisory forums, and those kinds of things to just continually bring in data. And then, of course, on the product, just pure technology side, you can also capture, analytics within your product and your solution, or have the way for somebody to submit ideas on a real-time basis. So constantly aggregating that and using those listening posts and avenues to bring it in, and then continuous improvement on top of it. So it just goes through this, this flywheel of then you implement that, then you're listening, bringing it in, just continue to go through that over and over.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love the fly on the wall approach. And I think it is really cool, because there's a lot of new resources now where you are able to capture a lot of feedback. I mean, I would imagine it was, the in-person route was not as accessible during the pandemic and things like that. But there's just so many interesting virtual channels now that really kind of allow you to feel like you're having, this personal, intimate conversation without having to be in the same rooms. I think that it's amazing that a lot of those types of technologies are being built for this type of a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's amazing. And then, so kind of actually on that note, for those that, when we think about virtual and really being able to capture feedback virtually, especially when we think about, patients or consumers that maybe don't have the time to kind of come into a physical location, they've got a lot of other things on their plate. For you, do you have a specific modality that you use? Is it like a Zoom meeting, or do you use any other types of tools? Is there anything that you could kind of share with us so that we can have it in our back pocket if we need it?
Yeah. I've used several. I mean, all the way from just Zoom meetings, or even a phone call. You can interview people and ask questions. And so if you are thoughtful about the way you prepare those questions and interview people, you can capture a lot of data. But there's also really great tools. I love my sticky notes and using Post-it notes to live and in person. But there's technologies that do that too. So if Miro, those are a couple. Even Zoom has some built in. The Zoom whiteboards has got some great tools embedded into that. So anything that you can do that to shift from just going, tell me what problem, and kind of note taking on what they want, to go and show me and put that down on virtual paper and talk about the steps. The more that you can do that, the more you'll be surprised at they can step outside and see the other pieces of it for sure.
100%. I love that. Yeah, I forget the power of Zoom, there's so many new features now. It's like they know. So
exactly.
I love that. I know we only have 2 minutes left. So of course, Lisa, we have to ask, we like to end every session with this question, which is, what piece of advice would you like to share with our audience? Or was there a piece of advice that you were given on in your career that you would like to pass forward to us?
One thing I've followed, and anybody that knows me has heard me say this, but I believe in keeping your network live. And by that, I mean, and so find your community, your tribe, if you will, your that's either associations or people that you've networked with over the years, but keep those connections live. Reach out, find out what people are doing, find out how you can help them. It's not about getting direct, don't call them when you need a job. Call them when you want to know how they're doing or what they're working on. And then also, I put that community involvement or associations, I include those in this, because if it wasn't even during like the COVID times, some of my product management communities or customer experience, those were so helpful. I mean, all my folks in Atlanta, we could still be on calls together and talk through real life examples of things that we're struggling with. So it's a community of people that are also thinking differently and solving these problems. And they don't even have to be in the same industry to get something from that. And you often even get things just by teaching others about what you're working on. So it goes both ways. So keep your network live and embrace that community to help you.
That's amazing. I love it. Yeah, I could already tell you're just so, like, as a person, very community oriented. I mean, it's in the work that you do and just in you in general as a professional. So I think that's really, really good advice, especially now. I think there's just so much that we can learn from each other and continue to grow. So I think that's amazing.
Absolutely. HITLAB does a great job of that, which is, I have to say that. I mean, it's one of the great examples of a community that provides that.
That is amazing. Love it. That's a great way to end it. Thank you so much, Lisa, for taking the time to chat with us today. Very, very informative. I feel like I just learned a ton about some really great strategies and really the importance of, the overall design thinking approach when it comes to healthcare. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This is always fun. I enjoy participating every week.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Lisa. And please be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Women's Health Tech Wednesdays. Also wanted to remind everyone that we do have a symposium on the 25th. So all of the registration information is in the chat. And we also have launched our podcast, which is amazing. So please be sure to check that out. We have a lot of really great speakers on the podcast. Thank you to our hosts and our sponsors, Goodwin and Witham, for sponsoring this conversation. And we will, of course, one last thank you to Lisa for this just amazing and very enlightening conversation. And we will see you all next Wednesday. Bye, everyone.